Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board on Wednesday, May 15, 2019. First, we'll start with a roll call of members. The chair is present. Vice Chair Reeves.
Present.
Member Lightstone.
Present.
Member Eng.
Present.
Member Allen. Present. Please show that all members are present. Moving now to approval of the minutes of our last meeting of April 17th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Okay, it's been moved that we approve the minutes of April 17th. We'll do a voice vote on this. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Please show the minutes being approved unanimously. Moving now to the chair's report. Not much to report today. Again, this month as last month, our meeting is being videotaped. It will then be broadcast on our website, available for anyone who cares to watch it. In the future, hopefully starting at the next meeting, we will be live streamed, and that will be in effect permanently thereafter. For anybody who does happen to be watching the video of this particular meeting, important to understand that the board meets every month and very, very much in short meetings where we do some business, but most of the work of the board members is done between meetings. And in fact, since our last meeting, my colleagues resolved 770 cases that came to them as appeals from our district offices, so our field offices. So thank you to the board members for that. Also wanted to mention that today is Jody Rumke's birthday. Happy birthday. Actually, yesterday wasn't it? Well, happy birthday, Jody. And I have no other items to report. Moving now to board reports. Vice Chair Reeves.
I do not have a report, but I do have a request. The governor's budget proposal is out, and the revise is out. There's some proposal changes in the labor code area. For instance, extending family leave from 6 to 8 weeks. Once that is finalized, I hope that perhaps the staff could give us a report on any changes in the labor code that might affect the board in terms of benefits. And especially if there's any standards that might change or get tweaked, I'd be curious.
Thank you, Dan. So Elena, will somebody give us a report? So you want something after the end of session?
Yeah, well, I assume that by June 15th there'll be a budget, so I assume by our next June meeting there will be a finalized budget that's been adopted, and we should know what exactly is in there. I mean, I know that we can all look at the May revise today, but you never know what's going to actually pass. So I think that by the third week of June we should have a firm idea of what's in that budget with regards to labor, and I hope that we can kind of get a sense of that pretty quickly.
Okay, I'll work with Mark also.
It might not be a whole lot, but whatever's there, I'd like to.
There may be relevant trailer bills.
That's what I'm worried about, some trailer bill that comes through that tinkers with the code and it changes the way we apply the law.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. And that actually brings up another issue, which is legislation. I know there's one bill working its way through now, Lorena Gonzalez's AB 5, related to Dynamex, and that could potentially, right now we don't know what it's going to do because bills, as you know, will change. But maybe at the end of the legislative year too, or at least after the governor signs legislation, we should get a rundown of any new signed legislation that might impact us. Okay, thank you, Dan. Moving on now to Member Eng.
Well, I'd like to associate myself with the comments I made last month, which is to thank the staff for their tremendous assistance, and also to add my appreciation to Jody and Rebecca for the tutorial, the boot camp that we went through. And it's not until we go through the cases, my original folder is dog-eared now because I actually have gone back to that. And they say that you always remember your first lessons. I took French like 18 years ago, and I can still, order French fries and buy French fries. I remember those original lessons. But no kidding aside, I wanted to express my gratitude for all those responsible for putting the booklet together, and to tell you that I still use that as well as the additional materials. They're too voluminous to mention.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Moving now to Member Lightstone. Well,
Yeah, I don't have much to add other than I would just add, in addition to the materials, the preparation that we got and advice about how to approach these cases was very helpful. So thank you.
thank you, Ralph. And Michael, Member Allen.
Yeah, I'd just like to report that I did get some positive feedback from my report out last month. Various staff members contacted me saying they appreciated the fact that we up here on the dais appreciate you guys and realize what a great job you're doing at all levels of the organization. And the only other thing to report is that due to certain workload considerations, the newsletter is going to be delayed. So it's going to be a while until we're able to get it out. So when we're able to do it, when our workload is more under control, then we will have a newsletter.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, first of all, for being sensitive to the workload, but second of all, for staying on top of that to make sure the newsletter does come out.
Yes, it will.
Thanks. Those are the members' reports. At this point, if any members of the public wish to address the board, this is your opportunity. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the board? Do any members of the public wish to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move to reports by our executive staff, beginning with our Chief ALJ and Executive Director, Eleni Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, Chair Block, board members. As I apparently missed the big reveal at the end of last month that both the field and appellate operations have made the time-lapse numbers and for the Department of Labor. And this month the report shows that 80.5% of the cases were closed within 30 days, and 97.6% were closed within 45 days in the field. And the average age of a pending case is 20.9 days. So sometimes after the big push, it slows down a bit, but it hasn't. People have kept up with the work along with the tax cases. And I did want to say for the board that you will probably be seeing some tax cases. I'm glad you've been reading your tutorials because the tax cases will be coming as we have fewer UI cases. We've paid attention to hearing the tax cases, and so there will most likely be appeals to the board on some of those, and so you'll all get the opportunity to deal with some of the issues in the tax cases. So there was a big push with us to finish some off by the end of this fiscal year, and so you may be seeing some of those. Let's see. Our presiding judge of the Sacramento Office of Appeals, many of you have met or know Dan Garcia. He retired at the end of last month, and currently we have an acting presiding judge in Sacramento who temporarily agreed to take the position, ALJ Jim O'Dell. We have posted last month a presiding judge application for the exam list, and EDD processes our exams, and right now we're in the process of, it's an online assessment exam for presiding judge positions here, so we establish an eligibility list, and hopefully we'll have that list within the next couple of weeks so that we can begin to interview and hire someone for the Sacramento Office of Appeals to handle that office. And I do want to say Dan was a great addition to the agency. He worked really hard. I know he trained some of you, showed you how the office works. He's always the person that we go to when outside agencies want to see how cases are processed through CUIAB, whether it be auditors from the Department of Labor or wherever, and his offices run very smoothly, nicely. So we definitely are going to miss his energy and his hard work. So there will be a presiding judge meeting. I think I mentioned a few months back, and it's scheduled for June 18th and 19th because the presiding judges did wish to meet the board. So what our goal is on June 19th, the day of the board meeting, is to have a meet and greet at lunchtime. We have our meetings in the second floor training room, and hopefully the board members will be able to attend. It's an informal lunch, and so that you can just meet and talk to the presiding judges of the various offices throughout the state. So that's on June 19th. We'll send an email too reminding you, but it's the day of the next board meeting. And our presiding judge meeting will begin the day before. And we cover all kinds of topics, personnel issues, how reasonable accommodations are handled, progressive discipline, as well as any kind of new, how to handle cases, what issues may be arising in appellate operations with the judges in the field, decisions, and so on. We also get information about what kinds of training that the presiding judges think will be useful for the judges in the field, because coming this spring we are trying to put a training session together, and we want to get input from appellate operations as well as board members if there are areas that you think that ALJs could use some additional training, and trying to put together a panel of folks to put on that training. Next is last thing I have is a security report. One of the was reported at the last meeting, we've had this lean yellow belt training, which is one of the state mandated management training. It's about organizational change management and how to handle that. It's a very useful kind of a training, and Lori Kurosaka put together, along with the assistance of the Sacramento Office of Appeals, CalHR staff came and put on the training specifically to managers at CUIAB that included the presiding judges, the legal support supervisors, and all of the offices. It was a very positive training except for the security issue, which arose at the Rancho Cordova Best Western, where most of our staff were staying, and there was an attempted break into two of the rooms occupied by legal support supervisors that were in the rooms alone at around 2 o'clock in the morning. There was pounding on the door. One of them down the hall, apparently the person had a device, whether it was a crowbar or something, and attempted to enter the room. So that was a negative part of the experience, and although nothing happened, they stayed in their rooms, they didn't open the doors. We did follow up with the hotel. The hotel's management basically said, oh well. So we sent it through with Carl Vega, and we filed a crime report with the CHP, the Rancho Cordova Police Department, the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, and we also asked Rob to go through with EDD in place that hotel on the do not stay list for the employees that use for the EDD travel. Now, whether, I talked to Rob earlier this morning, whether it still shows up on the Concur website when you're looking for a hotel, whether other state agencies are using it. So we're trying to figure out how to go up the chain to put some pressure on the hotels that we offer up to state employees to stay in, that they'll be safe. And it was an unfortunate experience, and frankly, because the state rate in Sacramento is, what's it, $90 or $95 right now?
Yeah.
So the hotels, many times that the staff can stay in, are very limited, and many times they are not so safe. So we're at the point that we're trying to elevate this issue so that and pay attention to where the staff stays, because this was our, it was a very positive training, and to the staff's credit, the two LSS2s continued with the training and didn't really make a deal of it. Didn't go home, but finished the training and reported it to their presiding judge. So anyhow, that was unfortunate. It wasn't on site, but it has to do with our staff. So we are following up on that, and that is the only security issue for this month.
Thank you, Elena. Any questions or comments for Elena? Yes.
Yeah. So, Elena, with the state, does the state have like an intra-agency safety group that looks for themes or common problems throughout the state government?
Not to my knowledge. Each agency usually has a safety committee, security committee that deals with these things. But are you aware of any, Rob,
No.
of any state interagency wide?
It just seems to me that a lot of times there's recurrent themes regarding security. I know certainly in IT there's lots of security issues that cross boundaries of departments. So anyway, I was just curious because it just seemed to me with this large of a organization, state government, that you'd want that kind of able to cross-reference safety problems, because it might not be just a discrete problem. It could be something that there's a general theme to it that would be important to identify earlier.
And in our case, this is all agencies use hotels for their employees that travel. So this is one, as you
Right.
point out, that could be a statewide issue. Some of the hearing facility ones are more unique to people that handle hearings. So each agency has, when you go to ED, we can't even get in without showing our driver's license. So different agencies have different levels of security, and so maybe that's not why. But I can look in to see if there's anything available that we can share information and such. And that's why when I talked to Rob about the EDD, I said, well, even though EDD put it on the do not stay list, to put pressure on them because we were very dissatisfied with how they handled it, it's still on the regular state website. So Department of Transportation goes here. So something. We're trying to figure out how to get that information higher up rather than just within the EDD travel and so on. So.
Well, speaking personally, I think you handled it very appropriately from what your report is. I guess to me, maybe it's because I'm a generalist by nature, but it just seems to me that bureaucracies, and I mean that in the most positive sense, they're effective through centralization and they compartmentalize stuff, but then there's, for large organizations, there's that need to kind of be able to identify certain recurrent themes that are occurring to the larger organization.
No, I understand. I'll look into if there's anything.
Rob?
With this specifically, I was able to contact the ED travel unit today, who did submit our do not stay request to the Department of General Services, who controls the Cal Travel Store and Concur. And they have a group at DGS who reviews these requests, and if they are in agreement, they will remove it from the Cal Travel Store. People simply won't be able to book rooms there statewide for all of government. If they, for some reason, don't agree that they should be on a do not stay list, then they'll reach out to us with their findings as to why they disagree with us. I don't see how in this situation they could disagree with us.
Could I give one concrete example that the state could be looking into it's very hard to ignore the what's coming out from those recent revelations about Boeing and with their plane as to when it's going to be able to return into service. The state might want to take a look at whether they want to be putting state employees on those planes until there's some sort of certification regarding their safety.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I know Southwest has grounded all those planes for now, and
They have.
that's a good thing for me. Any other comments from board members? Questions for Elena? If not, we'll move to a report of our Chief ALJ for Appellate Division, Jody Remke.
Good afternoon. It should be brief. So, Appellate Operations continues to meet the Department of Labor's guidelines and standards. As you can see from the report, as for closed cases and the percent meeting 45 days or less, we are at 97.6% of our cases were resolved in 45 days or less. And as for 75 days, that's 99.5% of our cases. So we're continuing to hold strong on those figures. And then as for the pending cases right now, the case aging is average 14.2 days. So I'm assuming for the immediate future, we will continue to have strong numbers in these requirements.
Thank you, Jody. Any questions or comments for Jody? Seeing none, we'll move on to our CIO, Jeff Willoughby. Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman. We're now approaching 300 computers replaced in our Windows 10 tech refresh. We're a little over halfway done. Orange County will be swapped out today. Then we only have 4 offices left. A few hearing rooms and outstations beyond that. We hope to finish right around the end of June. So that will be a nice technological accomplishment and upgrade for everyone working here at CUIAB. The Department of Technology Security audit staff left last Thursday after 3 weeks on site. And we should begin to see some findings from them within the next few weeks as well. We'll put together a plan of action. The ISO and I will put together a plan of action for review by Elena and the rest of the executive staff once we see that in its entirety. And I'm sorry to report that the live video streaming effort procurement looks like it will happen within the next 2 weeks. We have had some conversations with the vendor, and we hope to be able to schedule them in July, depending on the timing of that effort. In June, and then hopefully on the timing of that effort, we can get July's meeting live stream.
Okay.
And then we're working through our stage 2 modernization effort still, gathering documentation, a lot of staff effort being expended on that right now. It's moving forward nicely.
Good. Any comments or questions for Jeff on his report? On the whole, I know we'll hear it in detail or some detail later, but how do you feel about the audit?
It's going to be a great learning experience for us. This is you testing my diplomacy. It's a great, it shined a light on some places where we can improve, and we'll definitely be doing that.
And we'll hear more at the next meeting?
Should, yes. They didn't give us a firm date on when it will take time for them to write up all of their findings. Once they are delivered to us, we will be reporting out on this. We assume it'll be a couple of 3 weeks.
Okay.
but it could take a little more.
And I did want to add that as this was ongoing, when Jeff first got here and we changed ISOs, some things came to light that had not been seen the light before. So we aren't just waiting for the audit recommendations. We have begun, Jeff has begun with his staff to make the changes that are necessary when some of these areas, came to light. So we have been working on it, and we're not just waiting to the end.
We've already put together a preliminary list of things to work on, and we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Marty, I do have one question.
Michael?
So one question I have is that to what degree are all staff now on Windows 10, or are there still areas that are on different platforms like Windows 7 or?
That's the tech refresh. That was the first item in my list. We're about halfway through. We're about halfway Windows 7, halfway Windows 10 right now.
Yeah, I was asking because I kind of encountered a problem with Mary Lou's, who does our air traffic control for the cases. I was working on a case, I'm looking at a Windows 10, and she was looking at a Windows 7, and we were seeing two different things.
Right. Right.
In terms of formatting and trying to correct something.
We've tried to make the interface as close as possible to the Windows 7 interface, but there are just some innate differences between the two operating systems. You fell, I guess, into that moment in between. And of course, the help desk can help if we have any questions along those lines about the differences between the two.
Thank you.
So Mary Lou's is still on Windows 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might be that should be expedited to move her up to Windows 10.
As we speak.
Thank you. Okay, last of our reports is by our Chief Administrative Officer, who also had a birthday yesterday. Is that correct?
I was on the 11th, but I celebrated yesterday.
Well, happy birthday, right?
Thank you.
Rob Silva.
Good afternoon. I'll start off by reporting the overtime report, which is in your folder. CUIAB continues to stay on top of our decision typing workload without having to resort to overtime. We had used 488 hours of overtime for decision typing in the first 6 months of the fiscal year, and so far this calendar year we've used 0 for decision typing. So we're caught up in that category, and in fact the month of March was our lowest overtime usage month for the entire fiscal year. IT logged a whopping 12 hours of overtime in March. So our projected budget surplus has grown to $56,000. At the bottom of the document, we have our lump sum payment information through March. We had 2 administrative law judges separated in March. They collectively were paid just over $20,000 in lump sum payouts for leave. So with 3 months remaining in the fiscal year, the projected shortfall has now shrunk to just under $13,000. On June 5th, we have a meeting with EDD's Fiscal Programs Division. At that meeting, we hope to sort of get our final marching orders for our personnel and operating expense budget for the state fiscal year 1920. We already know that we'll be facing a reduction of 16.9 positions attached to the unemployment insurance program as a result of the October 2018 revise. We also know there will be an additional reduction of 5.4 positions that were temporarily assigned to us for 2 fiscal years as part of our tax program budget change proposal. The crux of the June 5th meeting will be a discussion regarding the May 2019 revise and that impact to EDD and CUIAB for the coming fiscal year. The State Controller's Office has established June 14th as the fiscal year deadline for travel claims to be processed through the CalAIDER system. So Administrative Services circulated a reminder to folks that any travel advance requests or reimbursement requests need to be submitted by close of business on June 7th in order to receive timely payment of those claims. There will be a period of almost a month from June 8th to July 4th in which people can utilize the CalAIDER system to create claims and approve claims, but although those eventual claims will be charged to the current fiscal year 2018-19, payment won't be received till sometime after July. So we want people to get their claims in on time so they don't have to wait for payment. This month, May, CUIAB employees receiving bilingual pay differentials are participating in an audit to ensure that they are utilizing their bilingual skills at the minimum threshold of 10%. This is a biannual audit that we do every November and every May. Currently, we're at 41 employees receiving bilingual pay. We have bilingual employees in 9 of the 11 field offices and in appellate operations as well, covering 6 languages. The due date for supervisors who submit the time letters to administrative services will be June 7th for the bilingual audit. And then I have a couple of facility updates. We just received the lease renewal agreement for our Long Beach Herring facility. The agreement is going to be a 6-year firm, 4-year soft term lease beginning this coming July 1. The monthly rent will be $9,300 a month. That will gradually increase to $12,100 per month in year 10. The lease includes much needed parking. We had some parking issues there, so we have 15 free parking spaces designated for CUIB at the site. But the property owner is going to build a pay-only parking structure on the property. We put language into the lease that if and when that happens, we'll be able to open up and renegotiate the lease for free spaces within that adjacent pay lot. And lastly, a number of months ago, you may recall, Chair Block, that we were working with the Agricultural Labor Relations Board to provide office space for 3 attorneys and support staff in our Oxnard Office of Appeals. While we were working through the interagency agreement, the ALRB augmented the request to include a law school intern during the summer months. So we've now completed the agreement, and the term will be for 3 years at a cost to ALRB of $2,300 per month. So they will be paying CUIB about $82,000 over that 3-year period for that space use. And that was my report.
Good, thank you, Rob. Any questions or comments for Rob Silva? Seeing none, that concludes our reports for today. It also concludes our open session business. Does anybody have anything for open session that I have not covered? Seeing nothing, we do have a closed session item today, so we will move to closed session, then we will come back in open session and report out any results. So now we are recessing open session and moving to closed session.